Dave was standing by the couch in his pajamas, knee-deep in wrapping paper. He was holding Morley's present. It looked like it had been wrapped by a small animal with no opposable thumbs. "This is for you," he said, holding the package out. And he kicked his way across the room towards Morley as if it was an October afternoon and he was kicking his way through a leaf-strewn park. "I love you," he said. Sam, 12 years old, and crawling through the paper toward the back of the tree like a caver, stopped dead and looked over his shoulders at his parents and he said, "Will you two please stop talking like that in front of me? It's inappropriate." At 2 o'clock in the afternoon at Dave's house, Christmas was still in full swing. 2 doors down the street, however, at Christmas Central, 2 doors down the street at the Turlingtons' house, there was very little evidence that Christmas had even happened. The Turlington twins had already taken their presents back to their rooms, and they had put things away in their drawers and cupboards. And while Sam dove under another pile of paper as if he were snorkeling, the Turlington twins, dressed in their matching Christmas sweaters, were sitting at the dining room table writing out their thank you cards. 21-year-old Adam Turlington was sitting on the sofa, carefully folding wrapping paper and sorting it into 2 neatly labeled boxes. One marked recycle, the other marked reuse. Mary Turlington was vacuuming in a pair of gold kitten heel shoes. And soon these 2 different cultures were going to be brought under the same roof. Dave and Morley and Sam and Stephanie were heading up the Turlingtons' walk. And now, as they stood on the Turlington stoop, Morley turned and she took Dave's arm at the elbow and she said, "Best behavior." "Very best," said Dave, nodding earnestly. And he meant it. They were both thinking of other dinners at the Turlingtons, the competitive strain, the abrasive political discussions. Dave took a deep breath. "Very best," he said again. And then Dave reached out and he rang the Turlingtons' bell. Mary opened the door and stared at Dave, and there was an uncomfortable beat before anyone said anything. Mary in a long black evening gown, gold earrings, her hair a strangely artificial shade of orange, her hair sprayed and pulled tightly back into a bun. Mary standing there like she was expecting the Queen and finding a man from the stables instead. Mary in her formal dress and Dave in his cords and a flannel shirt. If you could have seen inside of them, you could have watched both of their hearts sinking, both of them thinking, "How did I get myself into this?" And before either of them had time for a second thought, Dave saw Mary Turlington's Christmas tree for the first time. It had a steel trunk and steel branches and steel needles and steel decorations. And Dave, who had been expecting greenery when he glanced into the living room, blinked. To Dave, the tree looked rusty. Tree looked sharp, like some kind of giant corroded medieval weapon, or a bombed-out electrical tower left rotting in the fields of some war-torn country. And those are the thoughts that were tumbling through Dave's mind as he stood in the hall with his mouth hanging open. And the very first words that came out of his mouth were not, "Happy Christmas, Mary," or "Mary, you look wonderful." The first words out of Dave's mouth were, "My God." "What happened to your tree?" Morley saw Mary's jaw twitch and thought she heard a faraway whoosh. It was the sound of an evening of merriment being sucked out of the house. Dave glanced helplessly at Morley. I'm trying, his expression seemed to say. Morley stared back. Try harder. And then Bert was ushering everyone into the living room, posing them around the rusting tree, chatting with forced cheeriness. He pulled out his new digital camera. Everyone smile, said Bert, hopefully. And Dave did try harder. In an effort to show Mary that he appreciated her hospitality, Dave sunk his hand into a bowl of gourmet snack mix that was on the hall table. As soon as he popped the stuff into his mouth, he knew he had a problem. He glanced down at the bowl. There were dried cranberries in there and what looked like bits of cinnamon stick. But what he thought were tiny potato chips were now looking suspiciously like the stuff you might use at the bottom of a hamster cage. Dave's teeth grinded away at what he now realized were cedar shavings. And it dawned on him that he was eating Mary's Christmas potpourri. When he looked up to see if anyone had noticed, he saw Mary staring at him from the other side of the living room. So instead of spitting into his hand, which is what he wanted to do, Dave smiled gamely and swallowed. Bert handed Morley a glass of wine and reached for his camera. "Hold it there, Dave," said Bert.